All right, everybody. So this is the Survivor 46 episode 2 recap. I got here the Gabler, the winner of Survivor 43, right here to talk about this episode. How are you feeling, Gabler?
I am fired up, man. It's been another great season's off to a roaring start. We've got 2 episodes. I hope they stick with the 90 minutes, as they continue to go forward, because I sure had a lot of fun this week watching all that went down. And there was a lot that went down this week.
So much that went down, Gabler. There's a million things. Obviously, we could talk about who was voted out. We could talk about a tribe that slowly is turning into the newest disaster tribe of the new era. And you can talk about, honestly, just kind of an overall, what fans would probably say, bully tone to this past episode in a way that I don't know if I've seen in the entire new era, honestly. But I think it's only fair to start from the end, which I think we're going to talk about the person who was voted out of the game, which was Jessica Chong, someone in preseason I was super hyped for, admittedly.
Same.
I think she went really high in the Survivor Super Fun Time fantasy draft. I looked at her and I was like, man, she used to play rugby in college. Like she's got some guns. She's San Fran. I mean, she's got a good job. It looks like a lot of interesting pieces here, but unfortunately, it sounds like she couldn't really connect with her tribe, the one that I thought was going to be the Titan tribe of Survivor 46. And unfortunately, she was voted out of the game. How are your feelings in general with Jess leaving the game?
It's a little bittersweet, right? Because she was, I agree. And she's cool. She's funny. I've actually texted her, messaged her on Instagram a few times. Very cool person. And we've gotten to see insights into her personality, how quirky she is, how funny she is. But also, Survivor, especially that first week, anybody listening to the sound of our voices right now, Survivor's no joke. It hits you hard. I mean, you saw her. She was really struggling. Everybody is really struggling, to go with no food, sleep deprivation, all the stuff, all the deprivations that you get, comfort, everything. It's hard. And then to be on a small tribe that loses, as I know personally, we lost one challenge as Baca, and it fractured us. It changed our experience overnight. When we lost, we had to come back and vote out one of our own, because everybody was really close, is really close, and then to this day. But we were all close on the island, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you have to take somebody out. And as soon as that happens, everybody starts looking at each other a little differently, because lines are drawn, your whispers are happening, and you just are wondering, are we gonna be back here again? And unfortunately for Jess, they lost again in pretty dramatic fashion. And turning on each other a little bit in the heat of the moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's never good. In fact, it was interesting watching them come back to camp. And there was even an extra from CBS, an outtake, which was like Gabler's pep talk, which is super cringy. Okay. I'll admit that right now. It's very cringy. I know what my daughters feel like now, but because, I'm kind of going over the same thing over and over again. But my point was exactly what was happening with their tribe. When it starts getting tough, that's when you need to get better, and you need to help each other more and not turn on each other. And that's what I was kind of talking about, because, in our Baca tribe, a couple of the members were getting a little bit snippy, and like we're like telling people to shut up or whatever and things, and we're like, hey man, we're all trying to win this. We all are bringing something to the table. Let's not shut each other down and turn on each other when you have 2 teams that are trying to knock us out. Let's empower people. Let's do the best we can. And unfortunately, that's kind of what happened with on Wednesday night with Bonnie. They just couldn't quite turn the instead of turning the corner and winning, they turned on each other, and it wasn't very pretty. That's my opinion. That's my opinion.
No, it's true. I mean, it was kind of a textbook on how really not to communicate with one another, I think.
Exactly.
And it was on many different sides. And I think, Jess, even though I think she's a little bit more of an extroverted person, as she said, she also, I don't think, had a voice where she felt like she had space in the tribe. And they really needed to win that challenge. And, it sounded like Jess, in hindsight, if you listen to Rob has a podcast like Exit Interview. It sounds like she, had some suggestions, but people just weren't listening. I mean, Banu screamed at her at one point. Tiff was getting upset. Everybody was getting up. Hugh started to get really freaked out. And, that shows a lot of dysfunction. I mean, there's a lot of tribes with really awesome people over the years that couldn't win because they just couldn't basically get it together and have one voice. And that's where Nami, oddly enough, we know there's dysfunction.
Yes.
We see it with how they're picking on like Venus, essentially, or at least how it looks like they're picking on Venus. But when it's challenge time, they get it together.
They sure do. They sure do. And that's what Baca was able to do after our first loss. We had fractures, but we got it. It was game time. Look each other in the eye. We get through it. We were a little rougher than I would have liked us to be, which is kind of why by the time we got to merge, I was ready to kind of find some new friends and things and just see what was, if there was other opportunity, because I felt like we had, I wasn't sure who I could trust going in, and trust is the name of the game. So I figured I needed to go look out. So did Owen. So did, Ellie and Janine. Sammy and I were pretty locked in, but it's like we just kind of figured, let's go test the waters elsewhere. And that's where it went. But when you get into a challenge together, you have to look out for one another, because if you don't, you will lose. I believe you'll lose. And I work in the operating room, as I've mentioned before. And when we have a case that starts to go bad, or it is going bad, maybe there's a catastrophe happening, and you've got a diverse group of people, there's like 10 or 11 people in the operating room. You've got techs, nurses, anesthesiologists, heart surgeon, cardiologist, me. We're all running around trying to do our best to save that patient. And if we turn on each other, it's a disaster. But that's when people have to get really good and say, up your communication, know who you're talking to, be clear, be supportive. Somebody's doing chest compressions. You're like, you're doing great. Do you need me to tap out so that somebody else can come in and keep it going if they're getting tired, whatever it is. So I think that if you're going to be on Survivor in these tribes and these competitions, you've got to be able to communicate effectively when the pressure's on the most, because we saw them go at each other in the middle of that challenge. And Banu's a great person. He's an awesome person. I don't think any of that was personal, but it clearly affected Jess in the moment.
Yeah.
And it probably clouded her head, where she was thinking about Banu. She's maybe upset or frustrated. And that just proliferated and spread. Whereas if they would have been more together, would have been more supportive and been like, Jess,
that wasn't supportive right there.
Yeah, instead of yelling Jess and being angry, being like, Jess, you're dropping this. You got to hold this steady, like this. In fact, in one of the other tribes, they had one of the people. Oh, I should be knowing this. They had their head. They were like, you stand here and hold this, and I think and then they moved down and they were doing their part, but they were helping their people that were struggling in positions so that they would be effective. And they
probably
could win.
Nami, if I had to guess. They make the most sense.
Nami or Siga, they were both doing the right things at the right times and getting the people where they had to be. So I'm still learning who's in each tribe now. I'm not. It takes me a couple weeks before I'm totally fluid who they are.
Oh, but, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And it's the good thing is I also have a handy dandy graphic in case we need it.
Oh, that's helpful. Yeah, leave that guy up. That's very helpful.
The guy all the way to the right, of course, is Jelinski. Which, by the way, how helpful would Jelinski have been in this challenge?
Right? I mean,
he's got Patrick Ewing's wingspan. That would have been helpful.
You could have had him. He could have held the two up for a long time. Yeah. I think he's doing, it's a great point. He would have been fantastic in that challenge. You just never know what's coming up.
Yeah.
But, he's been doing well. I think he's really a funny guy. I've again messaged him on Instagram, and he's really good friends with Sammy and Sammy's twin brother, MJ. And they all live in Vegas. And so they hang out together, and they just happen to all be on, or two of them be on Survivor. But Jelinski's taking this all in stride. he's kind of embracing the legend of Jelinski, which is real. And
he really is. He really is. There's been a bunch of times where he easily could get like offended or reply in kind of a mean tone. Instead, he says really like either funny or just nice things. And that's
I'm
pretty
proud of him.
huge. Not everyone can do
I'm
that.
proud of him. I'm proud of the way he's handling himself. A lot of poise for a young man, and he's doing well. He's funny. I mean, heck, we had him for one episode, and there's so many Jelinski-isms and just funny moments and lovable moments. I'm not laughing at him. I'm laughing with him because I think it's pretty funny. Some of the things he said and how he did it. And I don't think we're done seeing Jelinski. I think the reality world will. I could see him being on Big Brother. I think he would be a guy on Big Brother would be pretty funny to watch him. I don't know where
He'd be an
he'll turn
interesting
up.
Big Brother person. He would be, for sure. I never really thought about it, honestly. But interestingly enough, when you said that, it's like, he's handling it well, and it was only one episode. But funny enough, in this episode, Nami started making fun of him, so did Siga. They were just like, "Oh, did you vote him out for several reasons?"
Yes,
oh my God.
but I don't think it was. I know that the team got upset about that, but I don't think it was. I mean, I think it was kind of funny. I mean, I don't think that was a malicious attack, so to speak.
Neither did I, but Yanu really, I mean, it's all edited, so I'm not really sure, but they didn't seem to like it very much. And then somehow it turned into a very real seeming thing where like Soda started like making fun of Yanu for not having stuff. Um, that was a weird evolution in that discussion, I thought, because I didn't think Yanu was like that down and out, but it's probably because the episode really focused a lot on personalities. And Yanu, of course, it was all about Jess and her being on the outs. So, I mean, maybe they're underplaying it. I don't know.
Maybe they are. I thought was really interesting with Yanu was one of our favorite people from the season is Kenzie, and she's sharp, she's likable,
Love
and
her.
she did such a smart move because Jess and Bonnie were struggling, and she said, "Let's go on a walk. Let's just go on a walk," and went down the beach to that little cave thing, and just had a moment to just kind of center everybody and let them kind of breathe easy. And I thought her pitch to them was not only sincere but smart because it was a good idea to kind of align them. The problem was the paranoia of Jess and Banu and the unpredictability of what Jess and Banu would do with that information was a little dangerous. And it came back around, and from the edit, I couldn't tell exactly if Q found out about that, but I think he did. I think from the edit, it kind of was like that she must have admitted some fault to that. I don't quite know.
I mean, from the edit, Jess turned pretty much right around and told Q.
Yes.
She went and told Q, said, "Hey, by the way, Kenzie is pitching the strong people. So just let you know." And that's when Q was just like, "Oh, she's gonna do that. We're gonna get rid of her." But I don't know if that was him just posturing, because how it is in Survivor. If anyone says like you want to be in alliance, you say, "Yep," and then you figure out later on if it's true, if you actually want to do it, that kind of thing. And I think that's what he was probably doing.
I think so. I think it was a good idea for her to kind of bring them aside, but they weren't playing predictable games. And remember, trust is the currency of Survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Trust is the currency of every relationship in the world, but especially on Survivor. And I think that when you have predictability issues,
mm-hmm.
it really makes it hard to trust you because they're like, is Banu going to say something at Tribal that's going to blow up our entire game? Is Jess going to go tell the secret I just told her? And she said she's not going to tell. Is she going to literally run across the beach and tell Q? And she did. So those types of breaking trust, I think, spell the beginning of the end, not just for Jess, but I think for Banu also. I think he did himself in by his lack of control in tribal council because they just they don't know if they can tell him a secret, and as an alliance, and will he follow through with it, or will he just go 180 degrees the other direction? And it's not because he's not a lovable guy. We love him. I can't wait to meet him one day. But I think that one thing that helped me out personally when I was in Baca and other alliances is people knew where I was going to go. And if I shook your hand, I was like, I'm going to do this with you. In tribal council, I didn't talk, like when I was in Ride or Die with Jesse and Cody, we'd have our visits on the beach or in the morning or wherever we would do it. We wouldn't talk a lot to keep it under wraps. But then I would be like, okay, we're going this way, done. And then I wouldn't even look at them in tribal council. I wouldn't look at anybody else. I was doing whatever. I would come in, I would say whatever, answer any questions Jeff had politically, making sure I didn't blow up anything that was any plans that were laid. And then I would
keep it locked in the safe.
Keep it locked in, go in there, pull the lever, write the note down on parchment, and come back, sit down, and another one, would go down, another one would go down. And that's kind of how we would do it. And it was, I built trust with people because people knew that if I was in their alliance, I would do, for the most part, what we had discussed. And yeah, you may make a couple extra promises out there too, but by and large, I was a predictable teammate when it came to voting. And at tribal council, I was somebody that I would either advance the cause in our messaging to the players we wanted to either feel safe or feel threatened, and I would vote a consistent way that wasn't like, well, I'm going to make my mind up right when Jeff says it's time to vote, and who knows what's going to happen. And by the way, I feel emotional about X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to spill it all right here. Mm-hmm. Those types of things hurt trust, and therefore I think hurt chances long term. So we'll see what Banu does this next week, because I think he's got some fence mending to do, and I think he's got.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah,
I mean,
right?
Because now it's what we would call like the Yanu core 3 is at least what I'm calling him now at this point.
Yeah,
and then you have Banu now. And I mean, now he's an easy vote. He's easy pickings for them if they lose again, which if they're not on the same page, because even though I think these three are on the same page voting and they seem to be decent at challenges, I still don't know if their communication's set enough to keep him away from tribal council again. So Banu, based on the previews for next episode, it's off. He's going to have a rough go of it because I think he's like crying, asking Kenzie to find him an idol at that point, which obviously can't happen because Tiffany has it. But
yeah.
The fact that he's in that state, I mean, I wrote up a whole separate thing just for us to talk about his energy. But really, when I say energy, I mean his mental state, being out there, because like, is it getting to him too much? I know he's a guy with a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. He channels
he's
it
a super
into
fan.
Positive. He's a super fan that whatever energy he has into positive, which is great. But the problem is when, all the trees are falling down in the forest around you, you start to feel pretty naked and uncovered, and then you get paranoid. And I'm wondering if it's going to turn it like it has been. And I'm hoping that's not the case, because I think he's a good guy. But
of course,
what I didn't see coming was, and I don't know why I didn't see it coming, was when Banu at tribal council turned around and he said, Kenzie, how should I vote? Basically. And she said, it's your game. And, says, don't do that to me. So he just gets up and he goes to talk to Tiffany. Because he's just like, he's not thinking clearly. That's what seems like is happening. He's just not thinking clearly.
It's a good point. And he's not. He's hungry. He's sleepy. He's tired. He's uncomfortable. He's stressed out. The game is constant. And even Kenzie took him aside, trying to get down the beach and just kind of relax with him for a moment to recenter, because, he was even confiding in her saying, how do I get my brain to stop? It's like, it's constant 24 hours a day. I'm thinking about this game. I'm thinking about this game. And hand it to Jeff, hand it to the production crew of Survivor. They create an environment that is very disruptive to your person on purpose. And in that, you've got high stakes, and in these relationships that you're constantly trying to forge and steer. And, it's not easy to find peace. And I used to meditate at night under the stars once everybody finally went to bed. until a crab would crawl across me or something. I'd wake up and then I'd have to, and then I'd, try to get back to sleep, or my arm was numb and I'd flip to the other side or kick Owen, because Owen and I slept night next to each other a lot of nights. And I always thought that he was a very sound sleeper until one day I was like, man, you're just the soundest sleeper there is. And he's like, why? Because you didn't think I felt you kicked me 6 times last night. I'm like, oh, sorry, dude. Sorry. He's just a very patient, loving person. That's who Owen is.
I was just saying, Owen is, in my book, is known as the most loving of cuddle bugs. So that sounds pretty spot on. He's
terrific. And, there was a quote actually from Tevin from an outtake. I think it was from this week, or maybe it was right after the show. But he says, every person is an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I loved that from Tevin, because Tevin is another one to watch this season. He's another one to watch. He's one of those guys that is, he comes off as a fun, easygoing, social butterfly, Caleb-esque guy a little bit. Mm-hmm. But he's super smart, and he's got that Shakespearean wit in the confessionals. And I loved when he said every person is an opportunity, because that is truly the way that I played Survivor. Is every single person, even, you're looking at, his conversations with Venus and everybody, and he's trying to unlock that puzzle to get to Venus. Unfortunately, I think the way she is built, she's a little more defensive than it's doing her a disservice, her defensiveness, because people try to get in with her, and she's a tough woman. I liked her backstory. I think she's great, but her toughness is probably holding people back from getting to know her better. And that's the liability out there. And, if every person's an opportunity, and every opportunity is you have to get close to somebody, you take advantage of her, you don't. I don't think she's doing as much as she can to help her game right now. And if she doesn't turn that around, she's probably in trouble if and when Nami loses. And I like that, and Nami's. That's great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was like, let's write up this graphic, and then let's write something just stupid, but kind of works. That's really what I think is core to this whole YouTube channel. And Nami's. Hopefully that becomes a thing. Soda is really good at coming up with these things like Nami, and maybe I just came up with one. And Nami's. So
I think you did. Hey, we can even do frenemies, because maybe they're trying to do that too, because they're trying to get together. I mean, Tevin was trying, and so was Venus. Venus approached Tevin, better late than never, and said, hey, let's bury this hatchet. And then she just kept that shield up while they were talking. And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm trying, but this isn't working. I think it's going to be if we lose. I mean, if Nami loses, you can bet both of those two are going to be going after each other. And I think Tevin's going to have the numbers. I think, at least from right now.
Well, that's what it's looking like right now. Because, I mean, it sounds like even though Tevin was trying to talk to Venus, it sounds like for the most part, the only one who's really picking her up is Randon, which is surprising because episode 1, he was the one that was like, listen, we can't let these Parvati girls take over the game. Okay. So we need to get that hot lady out of the game. And then, now he gets a beware advantage, sharing it with Venus, because he realizes, like, if I look at the numbers, really, it's me and Venus are probably on the bottom. Yeah. So maybe we should start to build on this. And she has nowhere to go. I know the rest of the tribe doesn't really like her that much. So let's,
he needs help. And clearly he needs help finding solving the advantage. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't, where Tiffany was able to, with her artist brain, look at those symbols. I mean, it was almost like Matrix, right? She's like, this is,
that was impressive.
She wrote that thing out insanely fast. I mean, insanely fast. I mean, I paused it because that's what I pause Survivor when I watch it, and to try to see if I could do this. And I'm just like, okay. I mean, after a couple of minutes, I'm like, okay, let's just play it. And then she solved it like that, which is really interesting. And she's a self-taught artist from her little bio thing that they showed, and is quite good. I mean, just a really interesting person. That's what, every person's an opportunity, as Tevin said. That's his quote. that's how to go about Survivor, because Jeff doesn't put people on that island that aren't interesting, that aren't don't have layers to them. And some people have an armor plating above their layers. But if you can, like say Jesse from my season, it was not easy getting to know Jesse because he was very private, and you had to slowly approach him and slowly kind of build trust almost peripherally before we had a one-on-one avenue. I was like making a relationship with Jesse through Cody. Cody's making a relationship with me through Cody. And eventually me and Jesse had a relationship going. And by the end, me and him were very close. So close that we even had one of our scenarios that either of us won that last immunity challenge with the balancing one before fire with all the bowls, that we were debating bringing each other forward. And that is something that was a real consideration. I know strategically, especially in retrospect, looking back at that, that's like, Gabler, don't do that. That won't be good for you. But I was in that space with Jesse where we had a relationship. We had different games, and I would have had a different talk track at Tribal to go against him, and maybe it would have worked, maybe it wouldn't have. But Jesse became a really close friend of mine in time, and I just had to be patient with that process because I trusted Jeff and the Survivor producers putting awesome people out there. And just to go a little bit further on that, Jeff was like last week online mentioned there's no more villains, or so to speak.
Yeah.
I think what he meant by that, if I will take a second to interpret that,
you're gonna speak for Mr. Probst.
I'm going to go out on a limb for Jeff here and say that it wasn't that Jeff's saying no more villains, because villains can happen in any game, as we're witnessing now, where there's some people that are, you can put Jesse as a villain because, with the huge movie he did in Blindside on Cody, but Jesse's a hero all day also. So he's just one of those great people. And I think that's what Jeff's more interested in looking at, is bringing on great people. And if somebody does like a wicked blindside or is more aggressive in a challenge or something, they could maybe take the villain moniker, as for Survivor fans call a villain, so to speak, like Poverty. Poverty is another person that was a villain, but she's not really a villain.
Well, yeah, one of the finest examples is one of the original villains, and that's Jerry Manthe. She really wasn't a villain, if you really look back.
She was a hard player.
She just talked about sex and chocolate, and that's not really a villain.
She was awesome. You're right. She was. That's a great example of Jerry. She was a villain. If you put her in the Survivor buckets, if you had to choose, Colby or her, hero villain, but she's not really a villain. I think where he's getting at is like, say like Russell, where you have like obvious people that are really going to go after people personally and be meaner personally. I think that's kind of what Jeff is alluding to. And that was my interpretation. So I think that, you can't have an organic human interaction on a beach with 18 people and not have, winners and losers, good and bad, all that kind of stuff, because there's going to be conflict. But do you have the majority or the complete group all genuinely good people as a whole? That's where I think he's trying to get quality people to elevate and let them figure it out as you go. Does that make sense?
No, I think it makes sense. It's all a matter of perspective. And if anyone watching this has followed my my Twitter account ever since, honestly, this YouTube channel started. And trust me, I'm not I don't have the ego to think that anyone watching this has followed my Twitter account. But if you have, it's Gabler does. Thank you. And I appreciate you for that. Gabler does. But one of the biggest things about me, if you notice, that is there's a lot of times players that like the fandom, the real hardcore stand fandom, like hops on, and I usually get pretty vocal about trying to recalibrate it back, because most of the time these aren't actual villains or people that they get upset about, one of them being actually Gabler. But a lot of people are more so shocked by the 43 win. You could argue it's due to how it was edited, I guess, but even then, even outside of Gabler, Carla, people came for Carla really hard, which I never understood. It was like she just played the game hard. No one really came for Jesse, even though Jesse, voted out Cody with his own idol, So folks like that last season, I think there were some people that ended up getting thrown into the villain area of it all. And this season actually kind of is a segue. into the topic I really want to get your opinion on, is kind of we're calling it the overall bully tone of episode 2.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Sure.
So this is a big question for me, and I want to set this up for you a little bit and hear your perspective. Twitter has been all over the place with their thoughts on this one, the big hardcore stan fandom. I will admit this as a heads up, in all the different tribes, and I have someone from each of the tribes here representing this graphic, because to one degree or another, there was some kind of idea of someone being othered or being treated mean, finger quotes, to some degree. So like, just from little to big, we'll say like the Siga tribe, they showed Charlie saying that he doesn't really necessarily connect with them maybe as well as he could, which ended up leading into a Taylor Swift Metallica song off, which I know Gabler's got the Metallica on. I know you were a fan of it, no question. Maybe got a little, like, how is it possible they both got up to this level, like between Metallica and Taylor Swift? I just don't get it. I can't name 106 of anything, including numbers. Gabler.
You know what? I think it's awesome, and I think that they even wrote about, or the confessional was hilarious, because it was the confessional with Ben, and then there was I think it was Mariah was talking about how, like, in normal life they would not sat around for that conversation, but they were just enthralled by this competition on the beach because they're just kind of, there's nothing else to do, and how Ben Casson was even like, normally in my normal life, it was like, okay, dude, pipe down, enough, whatever, enough, but he was like, to be able to go and do that. And Charlie, with his depth of Taylor Swift and the Metallica depth, which I thought it was really clever. Joanna, my wife, and I were like, the next time we go to a long car ride, we're just going to start picking bands, see how many songs we can go, and we'll just play this game. And I even messaged and texted Ben Katzman, and I'm like, next time I see him, we're going to get together. We're going to do, I'll take Ozzy, he'll take Kiss, whatever. We're going to see who can go the longest. I don't know. The guy lives and breathes music, and he plays a guitar incredibly well. In fact, I think he's getting together and doing some kind of a music spinoff with Sifu and Dragon Slayer Coach and others that he's doing. They're for real. That they're getting together, and maybe, who knows, Jay Maya may get into this. I don't know, but they're going to put together some songs and get together and just kind of shred, as Ben would say. And I sure hope so, because very talented people, very talented. I mean, Sifu is a sick guitar player and musician, and I didn't know that until I saw him play with Jay Maya, and she obviously is a superstar singer extraordinaire. And Katzman rocks. It's fun. I mean, this is the kind of people that I love that picture, right? Just this guy's been this guy for a long time. And I love that we, the world, are getting to see him shine, because he's a cool character. He's a cool character as a person, a really interesting guy. And, him and Charlie have a unique relationship from doing their first challenge together, even though they lost. They did it in style, whereas Jelinski and Q, Jelinski's like, well, hey, we may have lost this, but at least I got an ally. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way.
Yeah, there was a lot of wisdom in that thought. It's just the problem is Q kind of hated him for it.
Yeah, it didn't work out the way Jelinski had planned it, because, they just, I think if he would have tried harder to the end and they would have lost, yes, he would have had Q's respect and all that stuff. But the fact that they didn't kind of left them in their own way.
It doesn't really scream ride or die if you're good at, like, you chose the die the first time, and then
and then a couple times, it's you got to really stick that. But that's where Ben Katzman and Charlie, those guys, in their failure, they had a good time, and they also were close, man. They just had to dig a little deeper, literally dig a foot down.
Literally dig right under.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so, and I guess kind of bringing it back.
Back to the bully tone. Yes,
of it. So that was Charlie's thing, but I wouldn't say Siga had really that issue for the most part. That was just like, for me, I need to talk about it because honestly, that was painful for me. I'm not a Taylor Swift fan. The more Taylor Swift is involved in every aspect of my life, I want to die.
I was cheering for Metallica for sure. I thought that was going to be because they have a very big library of music also, but so does she. She's been playing music since she was.
I was gonna say, he was going up against a Swiftie, and Swifties, man, they love talking about Taylor Swift. I think Metallica
Sure.
fans probably like feeling Metallica, but like Swifties.
Yeah, and Ben even had a point where like Metallica did a Lou Reed album with Lou Reed before he passed away from the Velvet Underground, iconic music legend, Lou Reed, but it wasn't Metallica type music. Now, I respect them for trying. Hey, man, do whatever you want to do, but it wasn't. It's not like you're going to play. If you're going to play the Lou Reed Metallica album, you're probably listening to Lou Reed all day, and then you go to that. You don't play Metallica. You're not listening to Ride the Lightning, and then you're putting on Lou Reed at the same time. So I think I get it where there's some albums that I don't Metallica albums that I'm not huge fans of, but most of them I am. Most of them I'm diehard fans of them. And same with Ben. And even Metallica reached out to Ben after that episode and texted him, and they were like, "Hey man, thanks for supporting us, even if you don't like all of our albums." And it was cute,
That was awesome to see.
It was neat, man. It was so
what good
cool.
PR. I mean, he
cool,
honestly, yeah, like he said, a few albums maybe I didn't like, but I mean, he named 107 songs of Metallica or something. Like he's clearly obsessed, in love. Like it was really awesome to see, because even though like he's on TV right now, and like I guess he's like some form of a star on TV at the moment. No matter what, he's still like that little boy in the Kiss outfit that loves Metallica. So the fact that he got that deal, like honestly, I can't imagine how stoked he was when that happened.
Super stoked. He's super, super, super stoked at that. And he's having a great he loves life. And I think that's why I'm attracted to his personality is he loves life. He's just, he's always loving life. And Survivor's just another chapter for him. And he's just going to keep going on doing great things. But just getting back to the bully tone of the episode, I think some of it is.
Do you mind if I actually set you up like more specifically real quick?
Yeah.
Because there's like very specific things I would love for your opinion on. So let's get into Yanu, because I think Yanu was kind of the biggest one, actually.
They're pretty dysfunctional.
Yeah, they're pretty dysfunctional, and specifically as it relates to Jess. And I more so want to kind of have you help me dissect a little bit how Jess ended up leaving, right? Like, first of all, maybe why she was targeted in the first place. Do we think it's justified? And then kind of the means of how they ended up executing it, which was Kenzie putting together a fake idol, and them hiding the fake idol, trying to lead her to the fake idol, and then eventually having Q just give it to her, and then gaslight her into thinking it was a real idol, even though she said she thinks it may not be. Basically, from all those things there, it's like, all right, so do you think it was probably reasonable, from what you can tell on the outside, that maybe she was right to be the one that they would target between her and Banu?
I do, only because of the trust she broke with Kenzie.
Mm-hmm.
I think when that happened, all bets are off. And if I was Kenzie, I would have done my best to talk with Tiffany and Q, and to try to get that and Banu, get him on board. Although they must have told him ahead of time, hey, vote for Jess, and he was still, even at the last minute, like, where do I go? So I think that when she broke trust with Kenzie, almost immediately after Kenzie confided in her and said, hey, do you want to work together, the three of us, because those other two are very close. If we lose again, do you three want to stay together? And the three of them, they said no. They nodded kind of in a creepy yes, but not a real confident, like, absolutely, I'm in. And then she walked across the beach, found Q, spilled the beans. Q talked to Tiffany, got back to Kenzie. Jess sent herself home on that one. I think that was how that went. I don't think Jess meant that to go that way. I think she was trying to prove to Q that she was trying to build trust with Q, but that was a miscalculation in retrospect. It's undeniable. It was a miscalculation, because she did end up going home. So I think the making the idol, it was, I personally would have kept that idol for use in a later time to get somebody else down the line, because it made it a little bit better looking, because it did look like a string from the bag. You kind of needed to work on it a little bit more, but you got the note, and that's a pretty valuable tool down the line for her. And Tiffany could have kept that together and used it later if they needed to. but maybe it's something that it just kind of had to go. I don't think it was a mean thing that they did. They were just trying to get her not to play her shot in the dark, which I think you could have probably cajoled her into not playing, saying, hey, it's Banu. We're going after Banu. And she would have probably bought that, and it would have been okay that way too. And if she would have done her shot in the dark, I mean, it's only worked one time so far for Caleb, and it just happened. So statistically, the probability of it working another time immediately is improbable. The longer it's used and it fails, the more likely it will happen. So I think it's a kind of a reset. So now it's got to go around statistically. That is.
Well, I mean, hey, just to throw it out there, I think Jamie hit it too in 44, like very early on. But like I think the odds were different than Caleb, so it's not as impressive. Because you remember like when Ratu went to tribal the first time and Maddie got voted out with 1 vote.
I do.
It's because nobody had votes because they kept playing the shots in the dark and stuff.
Right.
So
I forgot about that. But
I think Jamie hit it too, but still statistically it is tough because it's a 1 in 6 chance.
About 18%, right? I mean, or just about 15%. It's like a 15% chance that you're going to go. It's going to hit. It's not great. That's even if she did it, and maybe she would or not, and then you just could revote and go Banu if you had to with the power 3 there. There are options, but I think Banu has eroded trust because of his unpredictability, and Jess and his, he's very passionate, high capital P.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna pop that up every chance I get. I'm sorry, Banu.
He's very passionate.
Just so you know, I love you, buddy. I love you, Banu. Just
love Banu. He's very passionate. He's a super fan. But you're also as stressed as everybody is out there. Nobody wants to lose. Nobody wants to vote somebody else home or send somebody else home because you do become very friendly with each other out there. Even Venus and Tevin are taking care of each other in their tribes. They are helping each other personally. Even if we don't see it on camera, I know that they're filling up water bottles for each other. They're looking after each other as the good people that they are. I know they're doing that. But
because they're strategic, and then there's just personal, and and I'm sure that for the most part they're doing okay. Like I know Venus, fans would probably argue maybe she's being mistreated as a person. I probably wouldn't. She just probably is being treated a little differently than she's used to, and it can feel very othered, and she probably is being othered. But it's all strategic. Like I'm sure a lot of those people would be really lovely and invited to do everything, but it's also partly strategy to not talk to people that are on the outside, kind of like the Yanu Tribal Council when Kenzie had to straight up say like I didn't want to talk strategy with you today, and then that's why
she did. But going back to Venus, I think what happened with Venus was she felt alone and isolated, and it happens. You get waves of this that'll hit you on the beach. You're alone. You're not with your family or your friends. Who can you trust out here? You're feeling beat down physically and emotionally, and you start to a little pity party in your head. And she ended up kind of going off by herself, crying a little bit, just going into a downward spiral of woe is me type of a thing. On that, at least my perception. Okay.
Sure.
When that's not helping at all. That's not helping her at all. You gotta say, okay, what voice am I going to listen to in my head? Because the voice in your head is the most important voice to listen to. And she's like, these people are mistreating me. I'm on the outs. Nobody likes me. I'm being excommunicated from the group. Stop telling yourself that. Tell yourself, hey, I'm on the outside. I don't feel like I'm being included. I don't feel like I'm being respected. I need to change this. What can I do to change it? I know sitting here in my melancholy and basting myself in this sweet sorrow, it may feel somewhat satisfying, and maybe she's correct in her assumptions, but is it helping her? It is not.
No, of course not.
It is not
at all.
So she needs to go, I feel this way, not it is this way. I feel this way. I'm grateful that I feel this way because it's an alert to me to correct these things. Start helping around camp. Start listening more. And she did say, she helped out on some of the fires and she's been doing things. But clearly, if she's doing it a little bit and she's expecting a lot of praise from it, and if she already has a reputation for not doing as much around camp as other people, okay, and reputations happen around camp.
Yeah.
People will go, oh, Gabler eats more than somebody else, or somebody drinks more water, or somebody, you figure you know each other quite well in 2 days, 3 days time. So if the perception is that other people are doing more around camp than her, don't expect one day or one gesture to flip that over. You have to start. It may take a week for you to flip that around.
Yeah.
But you start with the problems you have and you start fixing them. Because if you allow the yourself to kind of based in melancholy, you end up, you end up somewhere you don't want to be, and because you're not helping yourself.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're right. And that's tough to do. I think it's our natural reaction.
Very hard to
When
do.
you feel on the outside, you just want to crawl into a hole. It's not easy to be the personality that can bounce back, but you have to remember it's a game, the best you can, and say like, okay, well, I can either throw myself out of the game or try to put myself back in it. And
It's almost like
I think you're giving great advice to put yourself back into the game.
for sure. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You almost go, oh, I'm on this tribe. Nobody likes me. I'm at the bottom. I don't get any credit for all the stuff I'm doing. She might be right on all of this, but you're not helping yourself by having those thoughts. You have to expunge those from your brain and put positive thoughts in there because you're playing the game, and you will fuel yourself with positivity and positive action. And, free your mind, your ass will follow kind of a thing. You just kind of need to get yourself in the right mindset so that you can go the direction that you need to go in the game. And I hope she is able to snap out of that because she's smart. She's strong. I think she's got a lot to offer. She's just got to kind of polish up some of those edges around her, because when people are trying to bond with her, they're as warm as her brown eyes are. Like you've got an image up right now of her eyes, as warm as her brown eyes are. If she puts a bristly defense up in front of it, it's going to be hard to really, give her that hug that you want to give her, and then work with her. But I think a person like Venus is somebody that could be very good to work with on Survivor on that beach, because if you can get past that prickly pear cactus around herself and get to know her, I think she's somebody that would be fiercely loyal and would give her all for you in any alliance. So, I mean, she's a powerful person. She's gone through a lot in her life, and she's good that way. But she's from early on been painted with the poverty brush, and then she's been prickly with a couple of folks. And then, when you're laying down and if you're going to lay down and have a cry, which I'm not going to say that that's a bad thing. If you're going to lay down and feel sorry for yourself, do it at night when no one's watching. I've done that. Okay. I did that. Because it's hard on the beach when you're there and you're like, oh my gosh, we've been out here 13 days. Are these people, am I friends with the people that I think I'm friends with? Can I trust the people that I can trust? It's exhausting. And, maybe you feel very alone out there. And when you feel alone, it is sometimes okay to validate your feelings with an emotional reaction, like, some tears, but do that strategically. I would, when everybody finally got done talking at night, and we'd go to bed probably about 10 or 11 o'clock at night. No idea if we don't have watches out there. When after tribal council, you're back on the beach, talking finally goes down, and you're laying down either on the sand or on the hut to sleep. I'd either think about, friends and family, the game, or I would go into my emotional set. I would check my body, mind, and soul. I would kind of run through those because you're only going to sleep for an hour or two. And you're going to wake up and you're going to be up for an hour. Then you're going to sleep for an hour. It's like it's all over the night. So you're going to have these segments where you wake up and you just would talk to yourself and you coach yourself because it's just you out there, and you want people to see what you want to see, and you're going to show those things. And I'm not saying I did any better job than she did, because you saw me in the first few days too, when my feet were rotting and other things. You know, I was so dehydrated. It was insanely dehydrated. I had to lay down.
Yeah, you were in rough shape for a little bit in the beginning.
Very rough. I even said it in one of my confessionals. I'm like, you know, I had to lay down this morning, but I know every minute I'm laying down, I'm physically getting stronger, but I'm getting weaker in the game.
Well, yeah, they're gonna be like, great, we got the old guy lying down in the beginning
of the game.
It's
true, and perception is reality, and I think for her, she's if you know she sees herself on the outs. Well, guess what? So does everybody else. So change it. So you have to change it, and it's so much easier said than done. But that's why we're watching. I can't wait to see what Venus does next week. I'm hoping for her because she could go deep in the game, but she's going to have to make some adjustments if she's going to do that. She's going to have to do some changing on her personality and her strategy and I think she's going to have to somehow bury the hatchet with Tevin if that's possible anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's interesting. Nami is really kind of hard to, I think, to figure out for the most part because they haven't really had too much adversity.
Correct.
I honestly have a million questions to ask you, but do you think there's going to be a swap coming up?
You know, if the past is any indication, then no.
Mm-hmm. In the new era, except for last season, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I would like to see. I'd love to see them split into two tribes of however many are left now. That 2 tribes of 9 would be very interesting.
Yeah, that would be cool, huh?
Heck
yeah.
yeah!
Oh wait, no, we can't have that because it would have to be 2 of 8.
2 of 8. Yeah.
Yeah, we started off with 18, and we got rid of 2. So I guess we we should 16. You know, we should have 2 of 8 left.
You're
and
right.
That's great. That's how the game originated, right? 16 Americans. You know,
it could be a good one to do that. I don't know what Jeff's got in store for us. You know, there's a lot of surprises coming. I don't know what they'll be, so we'll just have to see. But at this point, I wouldn't be looking for a merge because I think they're a ways away. I think if Vanu loses again, I mean, it could be closer because that tribe could end up dying. But I also think. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying, oh yeah. I mean, at this point, it's getting to. There's a lot of similarities I'm seeing between like original Matt Singh from Philippines to Yanu now, which is wild because they're honestly very different. But it's at the same time the reason why it almost makes you think this is to go along with the Venus and Tevin stuff. There was a deleted scene from this past week where basically Tevin and Venus talk out their beef. And it was kind of to some degree, like it was a back and forth. Like Tevin's like, we didn't talk because Tevin wasn't ready to talk. That's why.
I saw that scene.
Exactly. And it was a great scene. I can't understand why it wasn't in the episode. And the only reason I can think of is that it's not relevant to the story that they're going to tell. And maybe there's a swap. Maybe they get switched out because based on this, to me, Venus is gone. If Nami ever gets to tribal council. And I'm wondering if that Nami as a unit doesn't ever get there. That's why I feel it probably would be taken out. And I have to ask you that,
It could be. It really could be. And I don't know. I don't know what Jeff's got in store for anybody, but that scene was interesting because it was Venus doing the right thing by pulling Tevin aside, for those of you that haven't seen it. And kind of saying, hey, look, I've been, you're the only person that doesn't talk to me on the tribe, which is kind of a weird way to approach somebody saying like, hey, I want to bear the hatchet, but because it's an offensive, it's
really a confrontation, really.
Confrontational.
But it's confrontational that's meant to solve a problem. But you have to confront it pretty openly and accost somebody. So I get where Venus is coming from, also because if she feels like she's on the outs, she's got to, like you said, if you're going to be there, you got to basically buck up and try to change it. And it's not going to happen if you continue to not talk,
No, and Tevin handled it perfectly because he didn't gloss over it. He goes, thank you for bringing that up, but there's, I'm paraphrasing, it takes two to
Yeah, he didn't
tango.
say that.
Yeah. It takes two to tango.
Thank you, good
And
madam.
you haven't been giving me good vibes or, openness either. And that's when I was hoping they would come together. But then she kind of got more defensive that he wasn't, collapsing onto her idea and saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I've mistreated you," blah blah blah. He was like, "Well, hey, I feel like I haven't been given a fair shake from you either," and they ended up having, they didn't really make any progress, right? It just kind of
No,
ended
not at all.
equally as awkward, if not more awkward than it was.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, just to pivot it kind of more quickly and more pointedly in a way, is one of my biggest the biggest issues on the Nami tribe. Like you can argue like bullying tone for all these different tribes. The biggest one that was like I've never seen it before on Survivor. And you tell me if I'm wrong on this one. I've never seen somebody snatch the idol from people repeatedly once you win.
Yeah, I
That
did.
was soda pop over here. Twice did it to Venus, 2 times in a row.
Yeah, Soda is a lot of energy, and she's. I love her jokes. I love her personality, her intensity, and in her defense, she was when Venus would get she was in the middle. She would get the trophy first, and Venus would kind of, or then Soda would kind of grab it and put it to the middle of everybody, and they would all gather around it.
But Venus was
But
already in the middle.
it's kind of like, it's clearly that's not a great move. And Soda. So go back to Soda and Venus because they initially were the two that connected the closest together.
That's what Venus said. Yeah.
And I think that's one where Soda probably cut bait on Venus because she could see that Venus was problematic.
Mm-hmm.
But that may come back to haunt Soda, in that every person is an opportunity. Going back to Tevin's quote, and that was a number that could have easily been in Soda's back pocket. And if they got along well, which I think they did before the lines were starting to get drawn, Soda could have helped her, almost mentored her like Caleb mentored Emily
Yeah.
on last
And that was
season.
huge. I
Yeah,
mean,
it was huge. Oh, it was totally huge. We saw the metamorphosis of Emily. Emily's this great person, but it would have been first out had it not been for Hannah and Sean and then but Caleb,
dear Hannah Rose.
but then
I love you.
yes, she we all love Hannah. She's
I
great.
do. I
We
just have
do.
to interject.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Hannah Rose sent me a voice note this week, and I was just like, I love Hannah Rose.
What'd she say?
She said a lot of stuff. She said a lot of stuff, but yeah, in so many
You've been
words,
very
like,
supportive of her, and I think that that's an honorable thing to do. I think that's great. There's no
yeah.
reason not to be.
Well,
Ever
yeah, I
be
mean,
cause out there.
listen, no matter for everyone out there, yeah, she quit the game. She knows she quit the game. All right. I don't think she regrets it. She knows she wasn't quite ready. It's just she was miserable, so she left. And I'm not gonna berate her for it. I don't think she ever took my spot on the Survivor or anything like that. Quite frankly, a lot of people who are like, man, you took my spot. Frankly, 99% of you don't have the personality, the charm, the ability to do what Hannah Rose can, or anyone who's ever quit the game. So that can't be an excuse. Now, if you're sad for her, that's a different story. I am sad because I think she's got a wonderful personality that was take the opportunity for everyone to learn more about it was taken away from us, and that's where I get bothered. And
that
that
was exactly how I felt too. Is Survivor is such a great opportunity to go deep into yourself and to grow. And the longer you're out there, sometimes, amazing things happen to you. In fact, it will happen to you if you're out there long enough. And, we look at Emily, which was an obvious metamorphosis. I had my own. I don't think there's anybody that goes on that show that's there more than, 3 days in. You're a little bit changed, but if she would have gone 13 days, I think it would have been really exciting to see. And I guess that for somebody like Hannah Rose that we first saw, and we're like, oh, she's cool. I like her. She's going to be awesome. You want to see for my own sake, I want to see her play. That's why. So I guess there's some of that angst as well, but we
Mhm.
digress.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I cut you off. I just have to say, Hannah Rose, if you ever watch this. Also, she called me a celebrity. She's like, "I've watched your videos before, so it's like I'm talking to a celebrity." I'm like, "That's a lie. Get out of here. I'm a small YouTube channel. I don't believe that." I'm just kidding. I believe
Everybody
you.
watches you, dude. So
Oh yeah, all 339 subscribers currently.
that's
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you.
Great. Hey, man.
Thank you very
Um,
much.
so,
Anyway, I
I think
digress.
that, Soda on there, that was one where she could have mentored because Soda's a social player. She's good at challenges. She's got a lot of power in the game. And, I think she could have mentored Venus and pulled her aside and probably helped Soda's game too. Soda's not in any trouble right now that I see, but you can never have too many allies out there. And Venus looked like she was won for a while there, and now she's kind of lost. And Random kind of picked it.
Yeah, he's picking her up off of waivers, basically.
Yeah, and then if she helps, if she helps him find that idol and they keep it to themselves, who knows what happens with that pair. But
Yeah, they're
Soda,
locked in.
I mean, ironically, Soda could have been a big part of that, and maybe she will be. We don't know.
Mhm.
We have no idea what's going to happen. But Soda's somebody that I think has a lot to offer, and when she made a strategic choice, which is it looks like the smart choice, but would there be a more complicated choice that might work later by keeping Venus close to her? I don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, for all we know, and this is where you have to, think 5 moves ahead in every direction.
Yes.
For all we know, Randon gets the idol. Venus helps Randon get the idol. Then they're like, listen, we need to pull in another person. Soda could have been that person, but Soda gave Venus the cold shoulder, and Venus is gonna be like, nah, she'll turn us in a second. So instead, let's go talk to Tevin and Hunter. So she may have just like accidentally screwed herself out of it.
It's a butterfly effect. Survivor's a butterfly effect for sure.
Mhm.
And you never know what that wing flap will do to you in 4 more days and
Absolutely.
or at post merge or whatever else. So being mindful of that is exhausting, but that's part of the complexity and the fun of the social experiment that is Survivor.
Absolutely. Um, what's into kind of because I know we're getting like there's a million things to talk about, but I also know at the same time we have to be conscious of the time because I know you got stuff going on later on today, and
Going to
obviously you
see
can only talk
Dune. I'm
about
going to see Dune tonight.
going to go see Dune. Do you collect popcorn buckets? Or you're gonna get one of the popcorn buckets?
I don't. I don't. I'm just gonna go. I will eat some popcorn. I'll be getting some popcorn, and I'm not
Okay.
gonna have a beer or anything because it's a 3-hour movie,
Oh,
and
be asleep.
I'm gonna be Well, I'll be. My bladder can't go 3 hours if I drink a beer, so I'm gonna hang out.
I feel that. Okay, I understand that. So actually one of the biggest things that I want to try to nail you down on is in some of the discussions. You already know this. I've talked about Kenzie a lot. Kenzie and
Yeah,
Tiffany in particular. Those two, after episode 1, they're the two that I've kind of fingered to be like clear, if not the winner, pretty close to winners. And that's based off of very little, but I don't know. I just feel it. And even after episode 2, I still feel the same way. Because even though it looked like Kenzie got like trapped trying to play both sides, no one on her side, the Tiffany and Q side, nor Banu or Jess voted for Kenzie, even though she was supposedly
correct.
like the other target. So Kenzie looks like she's playing a good game. But
She is
what's
playing a good
interesting
game
is
because she
it.
wasn't. She managed that complication
Mhm.
very well. She got no votes. The person she wanted out is out, and the next person she wants out is out. Her relationship with Tiffany is intact. Q is really, I think Q is actually, I know it's Q and Tiffany, and it's Kenzie and Tiffany, but I would put the Kenzie and Tiffany over Q and Tiffany right now. I think if it push comes to shove, Tiffany's going to go with Kenzie. I think.
I happen to feel the same way. I think it really depends if Tiffany feels as though she can use Kenzie as like a strategic equal to do some social legwork for her. Um, or if she feels as though maybe she can tell Q what to do. Although I think Q is wildly sharp. I'm
Well,
a huge fan of Q. But that's
personally,
what a difference is for me, I think.
he's a winner. He's a winner of a human. I mean, Q is a guy who's driven like the Jelinski challenge. I was inspired watching Q, and even if I was exhausted, and I would have been because he's in way better shape than me, I would have probably been crawling on that beach because he was so inspiring the way he was just kind of going, giving his all, his positive words. I mean, that guy, he said he's got like 11 brothers and four sisters or something. He's a big family,
I
plays
think it's actually
football.
17 or something like that, which is crazy.
Mind blowing. That guy is a dynamo of a human. And I think that he's somebody that in this world will be extremely successful no matter what. The game of Survivor, we'll see. We'll see how it goes because, he's a very driven guy. Is he going to be patient enough with people that aren't as driven as him? And while the motivation he was using with Jelinski would have worked with me, it didn't work with Jelinski. So maybe can
Sure
he
did.
move? It didn't. With Jelinski, maybe he would have had to say, "Hey, man, let's just go another. Let's just give it another 20 buckets. Let's go 20, whatever it is." He would have had to modify his approach to make Jelinski to motivate Jelinski because the approach that he was using, which would work on me and that would probably work on Q, wasn't working on him and may not work on somebody else, whether it's Tiffany or Kenzie or somebody down the line. So if he is, well, he's a guy that I would, if I was going into a Viking wall, and I would want Q on my left or right because I know that guy's going to fight hard and never give up. I mean, he's a beast that way.
He is. He's
But
great.
is he going to be able to do that with all the personalities from every walk of life that is on that beach? I have to see it before I'm going to totally buy in on Q, and that's why I think the Kenzie Tiffany alliance may be stronger because I think Tiffany, being as smart as she is, as perceptive as she is, she can sense that if they make it to the merge, yeah, there they are. If they make it to the merge,
My
this
girl.
ally that helped her find that idol, kept it secret, that has been loyal to her, is going to help ingratiate Tiffany with other people post merge because, and Q is the one that pointed it out. It's like, hey, she's really, and Q even pointed out in both ways. He saw it as a liability as well as a positive, as an asset about Kenzie's ability to bond with people, to attract people. And she's an attractive person, not just physically, but her personality is somebody that, it's like Cody. She's like the lady Cody of that tribe, where you just want to be around that person. They're going to give their all. They're fun. They're smart. They're thinking. They can be trusted. I mean, I mean, for me to say she's the lady Cody of this is high praise. Okay, so I think she's
That's
really doing a
hugely
great
high.
job, and I would expect to see Kenzie and maybe Tiffany. Kenzie, Tiffany, Maria. I mean, golly, Tevin. There's people at the end. I mean, I'm just trying to think of.
I'll pop
I can't
up
even
the list
say a
right now.
final three right now without my head exploding.
Well, yeah. I mean, no, I definitely don't think you should go too far in your life for it. But I'll tell you right now, since episode 1, I felt really good about Tiffany and Kenzie for sure. Maria, I have a feeling goes pretty far at this point. I mean, Tevin, I can't tell if he's set up to go really far or they just love his confessionals because he's really good. He's a great orator. A lot of people are really loving Jem, but I think that's based on very little, honestly. Charlie, they're getting an edit. He's getting an edit. Like I should really care a lot about who he is. But so far, I only know he likes Taylor Swift.
Well, I liked when him and Maria got together, and they basically said, "Hey, we're kind of Philippines. We're kind of
Malcolm and Denise."
Malcolm and Denise, and I love that they both knew exactly what that meant and everything. And it was super smart of Maria super smart at Maria. And then, you know, he's somebody that he's, I mean, he's no dummy, right? He went to Harvard.
Oh yeah, he's right.
He knows more than 106 Taylor Swift songs in a row, which is okay. That's a lot there.
I won't hold that against him.
Yeah, right.
Too much.
But will he? You know, I think he's smart enough because he's in several alliances right now. He's doing a nice job under the radar. He's in Charlie's Angels, and he's in with Ben and Tim as well. And Ben and Tim, we haven't talked about Tim yet. Tim's a guy that he could be kind of alligablering right now. He could be my hiding in plain sight person right now of the week, because Tim is physically strong, socially cool, and seems to be playing the game not out of the picture, because he's not like a loner where where Jess was having some trouble kind of getting those relationships and things. He has relationships. He's just not playing on a billboard right now. And I don't think you do want to be on a billboard early on in the game. I think you kind of want to be either on a winning team, or you want to be, if you're on a losing team, you're somebody that's not having their name thrown out. And he's playing a smart game so far. So Tim is somebody who we haven't seen a lot in the edit of Tim yet, but we've seen enough to where I think he could be somebody that's important and in strategy. And if Tim and Ben and move over with and Charlie and Charlie goes with them and Maria goes with them, I think that's going to be, those four will make it to merge. In fact, I would predict that now, because I think Mo and Jem, as likable as they don't realize that they think they're in the 4, but I don't think that they're quite in the 4. I think they're in the 2.
Yeah, honestly, I think without really much of a heartbeat after the last episode that Maria would drop them like a sack of potatoes for the guys right now. I can just feel it in my blood. I don't feel like she's going girls, not at all.
Me too. I think Maria is, she's my season winner pick. Okay, that's the person I picked.
Huh?
She's my winner pick before the season started, and I like voting for the older player anyhow. But she's not just. I mean, Julie was close last season, right? Julie was close. There is something about having some experience to come in there. She's playing a savvy game. Maria's playing a savvy game, and I think she reads the tea leaves quite well and can tell that Tim, Charlie, and Ben are pretty solid, and I think that they would win too. That they would go. That they're a good group. And Ben Katzman isn't just the morale builder and fun guy. He's also good in challenges. He's a likable communicator, and he's in the challenges. He was also, helpful to people, like supportive of people as they go. And I think that that's important, going back to the beginning of our conversation about when the going gets tough, don't get nasty and turn on each other and go. You'll be positive, because even if you win, like we never had any bad things that happened. Never had any bad things. But there were some little remarks and things that kind of were like, dude, we don't have to do that. And we would win. And you come back to camp and there's like some little hard feelings, like, dude, did you really have to say that or do this or whatever? I was trying, and we're all trying our best, and be more patient. I get the stress and all that, but I think that those are some things that they're smart enough to avoid.
Absolutely. I think so as well. Siga is going to be interesting, but I think the fact that there has been strategy talk, but nothing I feel like too intense. Siga's probably not going to lose for a little bit, which is good on their part. But I do think Maria's going to look at the landscape of the two girls that are really bonded, and then the three guys, which she thinks she can, if I had to guess, she could probably cut up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Like maybe Ben and Tim are together, and Charlie says he's with the other ones, but she's going to be like, Charlie's not really going to stick with them. So she'd probably rather roll with the guys and then cut them down from 5 to 4 to 3 to, and she probably feels pretty good about that. And I'm glad we're on the same page, because I can feel it in my bones right now.
Same, Kevin. I feel the same way. She's smart enough there. I think Tim hiding in plain sight. We got Charlie working all sides. Ben, he's somebody that, I mean, maybe he's a hiding in plain sight guy because he's very out there, but he's not a threat. Like, people aren't looking at him as he's, they don't look at him like with a cunning edge that he's going after, because he's just such a fun, cool guy. But he's playing that game. He's doing well. I'm proud of Ben. I think Ben's doing great.
I mean, I hope that's the case, because I mean, I don't know Ben super well in any way, but if I had to guess, like, if honestly dartboard, if I threw one, I would say the person I thought was least overtly playing the game in this tribe would be Ben, which is probably not a fair comment, because I think in the new era, in
We
particular,
don't know.
I think, yeah, and honestly, there just hasn't been enough time spent there. But that's my feeling on it right now. Most of the stuff we've seen is, I think he's there certainly to have fun and to try and everything like that, just like everyone else. But it's just, I don't know, it's just different.
Well, and in the edit, Ben gives them so much fun material,
mhm.
and they only have so much time to dedicate to things. They could be showing some of those things too. I mean, look at me when I was on the show. I would give them some funny, weird outtakes and stuff, and that would be on the show. That maybe there was something more strategic that could be shown that I'm not being shown, because I had something more fun to show around it. And Ben is a walking bucket of fun, so that guy has a lot of things. But we'll see soon enough if he's got the chops to strategically lay it down, because like the riffs that he plays on his guitar, can he play that tune when it needs to be played? I don't know. Right now, nobody's bringing his name up, and the fact that you've got two people that are potentially ahead of him on the chopping block, meaning Mo and Jem, potentially on the chopping. But if they lose, these are
If it goes the way that you and I think it will, then yeah.
Yes, right. We don't know, but he's not in that conversation yet. So if he's not in the conversation at this point, it's okay. It's like what Sandra does. I know me and you watch The Traders. We could talk about that another time, but
The Traders.
I was so bummed that I won't give that anything away there. But Sandra on The Traders season 2 was quiet. You didn't see her doing much until the game was getting towards the finale. And then she's up there and she's vocal and she's doing her Sandra magic. And you just see how smart of a player she is. And she comes out of nowhere. And I don't think you have to be. That's my only worry with Tevin. Tevin is such a big personality. He's on the radar that somebody on the bottom will look at him and feel threatened by him, and then could target him. And even if they don't vote him out, but if they put a couple of votes on him, his name has been in conversation once. It's hard to get your name into conversation the first time. Once it's there, you cannot get it out of conversation. I know once we finally started talking about Carla, that she was in the conversation almost every time. I mean, she was almost in that. Once people start mentioning Carla, like when Jesse and Cody, we were visiting with Carla, we're like, but then she had Idol, there was Cassidy, there's other people. You're always looking at the landscape changes hourly, but once people are considering people, those are the algorithms you're running through in your head. You're thinking about, I'm going to vote out, what about this person, that person? But if you're not one of those people in the conversation, and you can hide in those little blind spots while advancing in the game, that was something that worked out. That's what Sandra does, and that's what I was doing too, because I was privy to information, and I'm moving through the game, advancing, but I'm not. I'm taking shots. I vote every night with everybody else, but I'm not. There's no blood on these hands. It's just kind of like.
Oh, yeah. At the very least, you have near the least amount in that scenario, so that's good. I mean, that's good. I mean, obviously, we've talked about this before. I think you and People may not realize this or really think about it. Honestly, you and Sandra played pretty similar games. I think you actually made more moves and you had a bigger impact on your, I'll say your first win, just like Sandra's first win. Because if you really think about it in retrospect, most people thought Fair Play was the obvious winner that season. Obviously, he didn't make the finals, but Sandra ended up beating Lil, and it seemed like anyone could have beaten Lil at that point. So, take it for what it's worth.
I will not put my name near the queen because
I will.
She's the queen. I appreciate, but we do have similar styles. Part of my strategy was looking at hers. I mean, she's one of the people that I thought her strategy was very smart, and I tried to emulate parts of it. So I appreciate you noticing that. But she is a unique. She is Survivor icon. She is an icon.
Oh yeah.
And somebody that if I get the opportunity to play again, and if things do work out and I get a couple titles, maybe it'll take me a third title to be equal to Sandra. I don't know. She's queen on her own regard, and that's the whole thing. But she definitely influenced me. I'll give her credit. I won't take any credit from her, but I'll give her credit from me, and that she had a blueprint strategy that was it's hard to emulate, but it is successful if you can pull it off. And I was able to do that with some other people. Jeremy Collins is somebody I also was trying to play like, and Rupert. Those were my three. So I had Rupert, Sandra, and Jeremy Collins. Those are the three players I was trying to emulate my strategy after. And that's what the Gabler strategy is based on, is those three iconic players. And I think you can, if you watch season 43, you'll notice that there are elements of all three of those players in my game. And that's all I'll say about that.
That's pretty fascinating. It's like I loosely knew that, but for some reason I didn't actually know that, especially when you throw out like Jeremy and Rupert. Which
right,
I
but you see that now. You can see the Sanders strategy, because Rupert was likable, great energy, had fun in the challenges, was great around camp. I tried to emulate that aspect of Rupert. But Rupert was also such a nice guy, had problems taking the shots when he needed to, whereas Sandra could take those shots. And Jeremy Collins was one of those players that was such a relationship player that he genuinely bonded with all the people out there, and people were cheering for him and his family. And I felt, that if I could, every person is an opportunity, like Tevin says. If I could do what Jeremy did and what Rupert did and what Sandra did, just to my own degree, and blend that together, that it would work for me. And in that one instance, in that one season, it did. So anybody that's going to be playing Survivor in the future, you can, I got a yellow legal pad out. And when I was watching Survivor, I went back and watched all the seasons, and I take notes. I would write down quotes from people that had certain important, I'm like, that's a great point. And people's games, and I would watch their games and how they would win. So I would analyze it so that I could take the best of whatever they were and put it together into something that I think would work in the modern era, because it's a little different, it's a little faster. And, I don't know, as evidenced by one season, it worked once. I think it would work again, but that's it.
I think it'd be very interesting if you ended out there again. I mean, depends on the format, but luckily, I feel no matter the format, I think you'd be probably up for it, and you would do your best. Well, that's probably the best way to describe it. But the good news is, in a way, with there's being so many seasons of the new era that's happening right now. I mean, it sounds like the first time there could be a returner season is either 49 or 50. There's going to be a lot of threats. Straight up, there's going to be a ton of threats if it comes back. I mean, like anytime I put together kind of a loose tribe, I go like, okay, well, here's people I want to see from 41. God forbid you can get like Shan, Rickard, Erica. Those are ones that are big for me.
Oh, yeah.
42, Mike, Marianne, Jonathan, God forbid you throw in Omer, Drea, people like this. Then obviously go to your season. There's like 3 or 4 from your season right away. Obviously you ended up winning the game. Cass get another shot. Carla was pretty dominant in some ways. Jesse obviously stealing idols.
Cowboy
And
Cody,
Owen,
Sammy,
Owen's got a ton. Yes,
Owen.
Sammy's he's one of the bigger game changers of 43 that probably doesn't get a lot of credit.
Oh
And
yeah,
there's people that didn't get to stick around very long, like Ellie, who would be an
true.
awesome second chances if she felt like playing again. Obviously there's like a million people, Carolyn, Carson, and
So
last
true.
season, I love last season. But the good news is, if you did play again, even though you won, you got so many heavy hitters in there too that you can kind of mix in, which is great.
It is. I know we're running short on time, but I want
Yeah,
to on the same topic you're on. Season 50 is around the corner, right?
sure is.
So I don't know what they're going to do for season 50. I don't know
Mhm.
at all, and nobody does. Only Jeff and those folks do. But wouldn't it be cool if they did, like, instead of having like season 50 and 51, if they had season 50 that had 50 players that started, and they did 50 players, they went 50 days, and it was 2 seasons. Like, it started in the fall and it ended in May. Like, instead of having 2 seasons, you had 1 season that was season 50. And, 25 people are gone by December, and then the next season starts with the last 25 left. I'm just saying.
What are
Because
you trying to turn this into? What do you is this the that trend when they were turning movies into have like Harry Potter Part 1 and 2, Hunger Games Part 1 and 2?
Dune 1 and 2, because it's so long. There's so much to put in there. So the reason I say that is what you were just talking about with so many great players. It's such a Sophie's choice. If you got to get 18, it's like,
True.
oh my God, there's so many people that I would love to see mix it up again. And if you could, and as a fan, I would love to see like an army of past players that are the good, the bad, the ugly. Put them out there and let the best man or woman be standing at the end of season 50, which is a huge television milestone.
Yeah.
It's reality TV. I mean, Survivor is the granddaddy of all reality TV, for sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I would
and
say
to have
so.
something monumental, I just don't think you just have a season. It's got to be special. It's got to be profound. And I
That's a
know
big
Jeff
one.
knows that, so we'll see what they do.
That's a huge one. I don't know if I'm super on board with that idea, but I want them to try something different, and Probst is very much in mode of trying something different, so I'd be down. And it's a shame because like really I'm thinking more lower level. Really, I am just begging for New Era versus I don't know. It would be great if it was, old school versus new school versus new era or something like that. I think that would be huge because you hear all the time, yourself as a winner in the new era. Boy, there's a lot of old schoolers that like to talk a lot of trash about the new era, saying like, yeah, back when we actually used to do stuff that was hard.
I'm like, hey
So,
man, they give you food back then. They give you rice and beans. It's, hey man, I can spend a couple extra days. No, I'm joking. But
no, it's true though, and there's also something that people probably don't account for is the fact that there's not as much time to turn the tide on things either, right?
you're
You
right.
don't have those days of rest where you can kind of be more casual about and build up to something, and
You're
that's gone.
right. You're right. And would that be the pace of the new game? It's so fast that sometimes that they, like an old school player that may have been successful back then, with a week to get all of your stuff together versus one day.
Mhm,
You've got to touch base with all of your alliances in one day, make sure everything's changed, unchanged, it's back to where it's supposed to be, and you go do it.
mhm.
It's very fast. And then there's no food. Maybe Jeff will, midway through the season, will pull out a knife and slash a bag of rice, and whatever's left is what you
He always
get.
carries a knife. That's what he says.
That's right. Well, I actually gave him a knife when I left the show. A friend of mine makes Silver Stag bone handled knives, and I had one that said Jeff Probst Survivor 43 etched on the antler handle, and gave it to Probst. So I assume he got it, but
That's
I left it
awesome.
for him. Yeah.
No, that's super. That would be, I think, kind of the ideal thing. And there's a lot of Australian Survivor players lately. One guy who's on the season right now, I'm not actually watching, even though I know Rebels versus Titans is one that a lot of people like, including the Gabler. They're a lot of them are going like, come on, probes, give people what they want. Australian Survivor versus U.S. Survivors, and I have to tell you, I've watched Australian Survivors. I don't think they want the U.S. smoke. Honestly, I really don't.
They don't. They don't. There's it's a different. It's like different leagues around the world. I think it's fascinating because the Australian Survivor. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of all Survivor. So, but I mean, I really have been a big fan of Australian Survivor. I got to meet King George. In fact, King George, you know this because we're friends out, and he was at our house around Christmas time, and we just had a ball. He's a great person. I see how he's so charismatic. He's so smart, and he's another great player. I actually just read his book, How to Win Friends and Manipulate People, which was quite good. And it wasn't. And I think what else was interesting is he wrote several chapters in there about how he got on to Survivor and The Amazing Race, and to go through his auditions and what he did. It's actually the best advice I've ever heard from anybody that's played before. So anybody that's wants advice, because a lot of people will ask me like, "Hey, what do you do? How do you get on the show or whatever?" And be you, but be you on a good day. But George writes about it in a lot of detail, and in his book, in the first few chapters of that I thought was really interesting. So that may be something to think about too.
Definitely. And I love that King George, he's one of those players that I wouldn't mind if Survivor ever offered him a spot on a regular season, not just Australia versus US.
Agreed.
Just straight up said like, listen, King George worked over there. I mean, they did it with Sandra, they did it with Russell. At some point, maybe maybe we do it the other way this time, right?
Yeah.
That would be exciting. I would like that. Just to kind of get to the wrap up period, rapid fire questions for you. All right. Sound good?
It's good.
Awesome. All right. So one of the bigger controversies we've talked about a little bit was basically Kenzie and Tiffany and Q, I guess, really being a part of this. Gotten a lot of flack for making the fake idol, giving it to Jess. A lot of fans feel it was basically doing too much strategically, didn't make any sense, and unnecessary. What did you think about that move? Were you okay with it?
I mean, for me, I thought it was you didn't need to use that fake idol. You could have saved it for merge, made a better idol. I don't think you needed to do it. They did it. It's fine. Jess was who they wanted out. They got Jess out. Period. End of story. I don't think it was mean or malicious. I think it was strategic. I think they didn't need to do it, but that's they did, and it's fine. I don't think it was. I mean, hey man, you get bumps and bruises in that game. Your ego is going to take some hits, all kinds of stuff. It's a tough game intellectually, emotionally, and physically. And Jess is a tough person. I'm sure she's just fine.
I think so too. I mean, my biggest thing is when I've talked to fans is like, well, I mean, they made pretty clear in the episode. Kenzie was like, listen, we don't want her to play her shot in the dark, and it could hit.
Right.
So let's just guarantee it. I think your point is really good in keeping the fake idol in case you want to use it later. But as far as like its actual strategic intent, I was like, it very much does serve a purpose. You can see it. And I posted a link about this on my Twitter. I was like, if anyone's upset about that, but you happen to like Angelina from David vs. Goliath. I mean, she genuinely, toward the end of the game, she made a fake idol and gave it to someone who was going home anyway, knowing that person couldn't do anything. There was no shot in the dark back then. There was no reason to do it other than embarrass her in front of the jury.
Correct. Yeah. And that is, or with Randy on Gabon, with Sugar and those guys, and did that. But that's what Bob didn't like that either. But, those are the things. And that was more malicious. This was more strategic. And they valued her not playing her shot in the dark. They wanted to mitigate that risk. They did that by doubling down and creating the fake idol. Whatever. Hey, man, scoreboard. It was the right move. They got what they wanted, and it happened. So I think it was good.
Exactly. I happen to agree with you, my man.
Hold on. I'm just grabbing my cat who's right here. I can keep doing questions. Hold on.
Yeah, kitty cat.
There we go. All right, buddy. I'm back.
There's
my cat.
Oh, I got beautiful, beautiful eyes, just like someone else I know. Oh, wait, look at that.
There he is.
Do your eyes get more blue, just like Kenzie? I was ready to pop that up at some point, so I'm glad.
Yes, she said when she cries, her eyes get more blue, and I guess they did. It was cool.
Look at those things.
I know.
Although, I have to say, I think Survivor, I think they do some funky thing with their color editing because the buffs always look brighter on screen than they do in person, and same thing with eyes. Because your eyes were popping at different points throughout the game. I have to tell you, which is super.
It may have been the tears. It could have been the Fijian sun or the blue water bouncing back on him. I don't know.
It could have been. I don't know. It's different points. Like this looks pretty decent over here. Yes. Okay. So perfect. That was one of those things. Banu, do you think if Yanu goes back, Banu's done?
Yes.
Yeah. Pretty unstable, right? As far as, relatively speaking, of course. I'm sure.
I'm just saying that in the fact that trust, you don't know what he's going to do exactly. And I think that that's a problem. I think if you're in an alliance and me and you whisper behind the coconut tree that, hey, we're going to go this way. And all of a sudden at tribal council, you spill the beans. I'm not going to do that with you again. And because I'm worried about it. So I think he has work to do. And I don't know if he's got enough time to do that work.
Yeah, I think he's got a hell of a thing coming ahead of him. It looks like in the preview that there's going to be a boat coming. Maybe that means a swap. Maybe it's probably a journey, most likely.
Probably a journey.
It's probably a journey, and I assume Banu would need it probably the most, but I can't imagine Yanu would actually let him go. So
right.
At that point, unless they're really comfortable in those three not losing their votes and saying maybe we'll send Banu and maybe he'll lose his vote and then we literally have nothing to worry about. I don't know, but we'll see. He's got a mountain to climb for sure.
I don't think Banu is going to lose again. I don't think they'll lose again because as the tribes get smaller, unless they're voting out all of their strong people first, which has happened before, and then they get decimated or whatever. But Kenzie's a hitter in challenges. Q is a hitter in challenges. Tiffany's a hitter in challenges. Banu could be a hitter in challenges. I think he is. We'll see.
He's got the energy. He's got the passion. That's why when I've engaged with some fans that go like, listen, there's no reason to do the idol. God forbid she does hit her shot in the dark, Jess. Then you just vote out Banu. I said, but you all are missing the really important part where maybe they don't think Jess is helpful at all in challenges. So it actually really does matter because let's say they lose out entirely and they get oolonged, and they could have prevented it by getting rid of Jess instead of Banu.
Absolutely right.
There's a point where people kind of forget, like, yeah, you actually have to be out there and you don't really want to lose. You know that, right? Like
the number one rule of tribal council is don't go. Yeah. And if you can prevent that, and as the game constricts and there's fewer players on the team, people have to sit out. So you've got four, which I would say very strong, good gamers in Kenzie, Tiffany, and Q and Banu. They might be able to send Siga or whatever
or Nami
to the other to tribal council, in which case let the games begin. So now if they lose again though, I think Banu is probably going to be the one out.
He's cooked. Yeah. All right, so the next two questions for it. Well, I guess two or three. This one we didn't really get to talk about her too much, but I want to know your quick take on Liz talking about how much money she makes. How do you feel about that? Because I think that's a very interesting way to kind of play the game.
It's interesting in that it's not a good way to do it. I think, maybe there's some insecurity there that she's trying to, project. I don't know, but, talking about how it's better to be successful and smart than to show that than to tell that. It's like, I think that there's people that may not have as much money as her and things, and she or four businesses or whatever she's got. And, I don't know that that's helpful unless she's trying to play some 6-dimensional chess. And she's like, well, I'll just get to the end and they won't, nobody's going to think I'm going to be, I don't know what she's doing. I don't know. I don't think that's good gameplay. I could be wrong, but I think that she needs to tone that down. She seems like she's a pretty fun person whenever she's just hanging out around the camp being herself. She needs to do more of that and ask questions about other people rather than telling people about how good she is on certain things. I think that's a strategy that will not help. It's not going to help her. Not going to help her.
And that's what's interesting. And I think you kind of touched on it. It's you almost wonder if there is some kind of 6-dimensional game going on where she's like, by doing this, she's making herself like someone to drag to the end because like who's going to give her money
Maybe.
at that point, or maybe it's even a thing where it could come off as annoying, and some people who maybe have the wherewithal in the game to kind of withstand some of the very surface, like this bothers me stuff, and say like, well, she's great to take to the end then because like I don't think everyone else is vibing with this,
Yeah.
so I'll just bring her along. I don't know, but there's like in my mind there has to be a strategy to it because you cannot be so overt about that kind of thing. It's I don't see Liz as someone who's super not self-aware. I really don't, but
Agreed.
but that feels like it is, but I don't know.
It could be. I mean, we don't know enough yet of
Mhm.
the edit. We don't know,
Yeah.
but from what I can tell, watching on the couch, those are some cringy moments, and people are looking at each other cringing.
Mhm.
That's usually not a positive.
Mhm. No, not usually. Not usually
Usually
if
not.
that's the case. I'm super curious to see where she develops. She's someone that I definitely from watching, I haven't made a judgment on other than that. But that's really all they've given us. Is like, yeah, I don't know who's gonna marry me. I make a lot of money. And I don't know if that's accurate, but that's what we got. So
Yeah, I mean, I
let's see how
don't
it
know.
shakes out.
She's quirky and fun. We'll see more of her, but she's gonna need to. I don't know. She's gonna need to pivot off of that. I think she's gonna have to pivot.
I think so too. All right, so this little bit, this is the last little bit here, which is we talked about the hiding in plain sight award, and that's what I want you to give away today. I want you to give this week the hiding in plain sight award for someone who maybe isn't overtly taking over the game, but you can see long off into the distance, eventually taking this down. But before you do that, I have very special theme music for this specific segment here that I think it's actually very Gabler-fied. I think you would like this. So sit back and enjoy.
Let's see it.
Hiding in plain sight.
Let's go.
Dude, Kevin, that's awesome. Okay,
Thank
man.
you.
Hiding in plain sight. This I'm gonna say right now that we're gonna have Tim is hiding in plain sight. He is the week
Tim.
awarder of Tim. He's there. His name is not being kicked around. He's in no threat. He seems like he's hiding in plain sight. We don't know whether his stock is going to go up or down. He's just kind of there right now, but he's not playing poorly. He's Sandra-ing a bit in that he's good enough in challenges. He's good enough in relationships. He's making alliances, and he seems like he's in his confessionals that he's aware of the things going on around him, and he's
Mhm.
not making any mistakes. He hasn't done anything overtly large yet either, but there's a lot of game left to go. So for this week, I'm going to say it's Tim.
That's a great choice. And that's the number one thing that everyone has to remember. If anyone has any massive over the top hot takes about this season so far, or the people in this season, which has definitely happened already, remember, it's 2 episodes in. 2 episodes in,
Yeah,
everybody. We know almost nothing about so many of these people. Yanu, we know the best because they lose. When tribes lose, we learn more. We knew a lot about Lulu last season by this point
yeah.
because they were pretty miserable and losing. And Tim, as you had said, it looks like he is someone who's pretty aware, and they know what battle is coming. They just haven't had to fight it yet. And Tim has done a good job in that regard. And obviously, we know that you said the winner pick that you have right now is Maria, also on Siga. But Tim, I think, is an awesome guy that maybe even I didn't give enough credit in preseason. And I can see how he could creep up on people if he gets the opportunity to really make a move or two.
Yeah. And great point qualifying that with we are 2 episodes in. But I mean, I like the guy. I like when I've never met him, never talked to him, but I like what I'm seeing. He's somebody that I would gravitate towards as well out there. So, and he could be somebody that we'll see when they lose eventually, or when they get in under a pressure situation, how he speaks at tribal, how he does. We'll see. We'll know more of this. But for now, the guy is in the catbird seat. He's definitely going to go another few days in this game, and he's got relationships with enough of his tribe to where I think he's in a majority two ways, and we'll see how he goes. But I like Tim. Tim's my hiding in plain sight Gabler award of the week, if you will.
There we go. Tim gets the W for this week. That's awesome. So this is only started in episode 2, so we don't have one for week 1, unfortunately, but that's totally okay. No big deal.
We kind of did both. We kind of caught up on a lot.
Kind of did, actually, yeah, because we didn't get to chat fully about it. That's all right. It's all good. It's all good. But that's the end of my questions for the Gabler today. I can only thank you so much for being here so we can talk about the game.
So fun, man.
Gabler's a big nerd. I'm a big nerd about this game, and hopefully it's only going to continue to progress. From what I know, 46 is probably going to continue to get rougher. Jeff has only talked about it getting a little bit more, I don't know what the right word is. Definitely not villainous, but it's definitely going to have an edge.
Raw.
In 46.
Maybe raw.
And that's probably the case, because I got to tell you, like 45 for me, I loved 45, but I don't know if there was ever a point where it really was like that. And already 2 episodes in, feels like a different tone moving forward, which I think is good. You have to have seasons with feelings to them. Otherwise, it literally is just McDonald's or Mixed Survivor is what I would use.
Yeah, you don't want to have Mixed Survivor. And
yeah,
they do a great job picking players and making it different. It's organic. You just never know. They put a lot of interesting people. There's a psychological profile that you do before you do survival. They're moving people around. I'm sure that they put me and Ellie on a tribe together because we're very similar. We're pretty, type A people. We're all this stuff. And they knew that eventually that was going to get, either we were going to be a super tight pair, which we could have been. We did and do like each other a lot. And she was my first ally. She was literally my first ally on Baca. We kind of looked at each other, and I'm like, let's do that. Well, even we first showed up on the beach. We didn't even gone into we first saw Jeff on the beach for the first time. We had to do that challenge, and it was like Ellie and I will do the water challenge together. And because we picked each other because we were already kind of connecting there. It's just the energy and the stresses of the game disrupt everything on purpose, so that we have these wild shows. And she was an awesome player and is an awesome person. And that's what we're going to see a lot more of, I think, with Survivor and Jeff in the future.
Well, that's certainly my hope, because again, tones do have to kind of shift, and you want to be able to separate seasons out. Just like, even there's different seasons of different shows, they have different feels, different vibes. And I feel like that's how it's shaping up. And that's the beauty of the casting, like you said. And I think it's shaping in a good direction. And for me, again, as someone who's a really big fan of the Yanu tribe, and this is a very weird way to kind of gauge popularity, but I'm a buff collector. And right now, I actually wore my Yanu as I wore it as an ascot, as a sign of solidarity for Yanu, because
very cool, man.
I believe in Yanu during this game moving forward. Okay, people like Kenzie, Q, and Tiff, they got the juice no matter what you all are thinking about it right now. And in the buff game, just to let you know, there's a way you can kind of track how much is being sold of each tribe. And right now, the most popular by far is Yanu. It's not even a question. They're selling 2 or 3 times what every other tribe is. Nami, the most competent one, is selling the least, which tells me right now the one that people really are gravitating toward in the edit is Yanu, and I think that's for a reason. So I have only a lot of positive feelings toward them moving forward. And you know what? Keep kicking butt, basically. But for the most part, I think that's going to do it this time around here. We had an awesome time. Remember to be subscribed to the channel if you want to see more stuff in the future. I'll be doing some more videos about some of the things that I have some more opinions about, like Sweater Savvy. I still don't feel I'm not in love with the concept at this point, but that's going to do it. Thank you again, Gabler, for being here. I greatly appreciate it.
Pleasure, man. So much fun. Love it. Great recap of the first 2 episodes, and go 46. It's looking awesome.
So everyone have an awesome time. Take care, everybody.